Thanks, Jim. Okay, at 4 o'clock, I'd like to call the Isabella County Board of Commissioners work session to order, please. Everyone would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Lux, a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Here.
Commissioner Engler,
Here.
Elzinski,
Here.
Commissioner Marino,
Here.
Sweeney,
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Oh, Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioner Hope is absent.
Commissioner Hope is on vacation this week, a well-deserved vacation. He's been working extremely hard being chairperson, and I can't wait to have him back. So we will now move on to the approval of the agenda. We have general public comments. Next up, we will have presentations and special reports, which we have 3 items tonight. Under boards, appointments to boards and commissions, we have 1 resignation and 1 appointment. Next up, committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee.
Chairman,
Next up, Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Human Resources and Public Works Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Have anything under intergovernmental affairs this evening?
No.
We have nothing under the administrator controller reports. You'll be doing a lot of speaking though today. Next up, unfinished business. We have no items, nothing under new business. That brings us to general public comments, announcements, and then we get to adjourn for the work session. Can I get a motion and support for the approval of the agenda, please?
I'll move the adoption of the agenda.
Support Sweeney.
We have a motion by Joe Lazinski and a support by Sweeney to adopt the approval of the agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. We have an agenda. Next up, general public comments. General public comments. This is a hybrid meeting, so we'll both have in-person and electronic or virtual comments. First of all, we'll go to the in-person. These items are limited to 3 minutes. Anybody in the audience would like to come up and speak? Everybody's all fighting amongst themselves to get up. And well, then we'll move on. Jessica, do we have anybody in the virtual this evening? Okay, in the interest of keeping a tight schedule, we'll move on then to presentations and special reports. First up, the Isabella County Medical Care Facility. I believe we have a couple of attendees here.
You.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
I'm Melissa Haynack, Administrator from the Isabella County Medical Care Facility. And I have our CPA consultant, Phil Alt, with me today. So I guess we are here to ask the Board of Commissioners for the full mill to be on the tax roll for the next fiscal year. We're budgeting for that for, as the facility still is dealing with a lot of COVID expenses and issues, recovering from the lower census, from segregating rooms and things. And also to try to secure funds, in our accounts to do future projects that we're working on a master plan for the building that will need to be done. Specifically, we have a 1965 area of our building. We have well, it's not working.
Take it out if you want, if that helps you.
I always have trouble when I come in here with this thing. We have a 1965 area of our building that is about 18 of our 100 rooms that is still that old plumbing and all of that. So that's probably one of our focal points for some of that funding. I don't know if had any questions for us or.
Commissioner Jazinski.
This one doesn't want to work either.
Glad it's just not me.
Okay, congratulations on the millage renewal.
Thank you.
I did go and inquire about beds availability and apparently there were none. So are you at 100% capacity or do you have beds but not staff to take care of any empty beds you have?
Well, we're at capacity for the staff in the rooms that we have available for use. Right now. So yeah, we don't any available. We're full, right? But I don't have residents.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any further questions? Commissioner Swayne.
I was gonna ask about that. Okay. But I'll ask, how is has visitation rules changed at all? Have they eased for your patients or? I can wait.
We're going to blame this on Chairman Hope on this one.
Oh, but notice our
yeah.
IT director is not here
Yeah,
either,
she-
so we
yeah.
could share the. We're all doing great.
There we go. Now we're going to. I listen to a podcast at times and they say, cut. We can't edit this out. So there you go.
Can you repeat what you asked
I
me?
was just gonna ask if, I know for visitation for people living in the facility was really tight in 2020 and 2021, and I was wondering if that's been able to be eased. I know.
Yes, in the fall of 2021, and the federal government really loosened a lot of those visitation. It's more doing for COVID coming in. We are supposed to keep 6 foot social distancing. Where that, like the room that a resident stays in doesn't allow for several people to be in that space. So we do limit 2 visitors at a time. If they want to visit with a bigger group of families, say 15 people want to come in for a 90th birthday party, we have areas in the building, we'll plan that and have that type of visitation, but just wearing the same PPE that our staff's wearing, masks and face shields or eye protection and screening for COVID. So if you don't meet this, if you've had a cough, that kind of stuff, but really it's a lot better than it was. But there are some limitations, but we're trying to accommodate those in other areas of our building. So I think everybody's, I don't hear a lot of grumbling about it anymore. So I think people are getting the visitation that they want to have, or we're able to accommodate the special requests.
Thank you. In 20, gosh. Here we go. 2021, I was getting calls from family members who, obviously wanted to see their parents or whoever and stuff. And I haven't received any this year. So
it was very difficult because we were you couldn't come. You could only talk through a window. And, I encourage all, not you, but the state and CMS.
Yeah.
it's fine for them not to call me. I'm just
November.
know that
we've been on the same visitation since then, and we've
Mhm.
had no changes. No matter whether the rate of COVID infection went up or down, they've kept the same rules.
Thank you.
Anything else from the commissioners? All right, well, thank you both very much. And again, Isabella County Medical Care Facility is another very fine entity in our county. And I mean, they do a wonderful job, and they've had the last 2.5 years. I don't envy your position at all. So congratulations, you've done a fine job. So
Thank you. We always appreciate your support. Just can't use a microphone or what? I guess I do have one question. Do you think that we should stay and come to the full meeting? Do you think there'll be any additional
yeah,
thoughts?
we usually encourage the presentations, in the work session, and then it's pretty perfunctory at night. So
Okay,
most of the commissioners would ask if they had any complaints or issues, and I've seen none. So now
okay, thank
unless you
you.
want to have a good time, and we have
Well, I
plenty- we have plenty of seating.
Canteen.
Yeah, we have plenty of seating, but no, the rest of there's no reason to come tonight. Thank you. All right, next up, the Isabella County Administrative Controller Nicole F. Frost to present the fiscal year 2023 recommended budget.
Yes, thank you. You're welcome to stay. No, actually, we put you on the agenda first before this specifically, so you didn't have to stay. So please don't feel like you have to. So a little different this year. I talked with Chairman Hope and he was fine with the change. I hope that the rest of the commissioners and the audience are fine with this change as well. But you will not see a quote unquote budget presentation with a PowerPoint with department statistics and department pictures and all of that this year and going forward. Anywhere else I've been, the budget presentation, if you will, is walking through the budget document, which I feel is the most important thing to do. So that's what I'm here prepared to do today, is to walk us through that recommended budget. Commissioners, you should have a printed version in front of you if you would like. I will also share it on the screen. Audience, there's a few hard copies up here if you would like. Again, it'll be shared on the screen, hopefully large enough font that it works for you guys to see. But if not, feel free to move up or grab a hard copy. So I am just going to start by sharing my screen and working through this document. Now, I do want to say I'm not leaving the departments out in the cold here, right? If you want to hear from any of those departments, obviously this board just needs to let me know or let those departments know, and we'll get them in front of you on the schedule. So starting out, I'm sure you guys have all thoroughly reviewed this from your packet. I am here to present the fiscal year 23 recommended budget. The document starts out with a table of contents to help you work yourself through this document. And then one of the first pages is talking about there's 17 electeds in the county. If you can think of who they are, the 7 commissioners here, of course. We also have 4 trial court judges. Remember, we do things differently here. We have a unified trial court. That's why you don't see a separate district court judge on here. It's unified court with circuit and probate. And then, of course, the 6 electeds with our county clerk, drain commissioner, prosecuting attorney, register of deeds, sheriff, and treasurer. And then round out the leadership of the county, I am named as administrator controller on that page. So the first thing after that in the budget document is what's called the budget transmittal message. This is just my note to the commissioners talking about some of the highlights, lowlights of the budget, things that are important to note. I do want you to note on the very beginning of this letter that I do say the Board of Commissioners should hold a place of pride. There's a lot of department heads, a lot of electeds, a lot of county staff who work very hard to hold the line in their budgets. They do seem to rally towards our common goal. So We know recently the word has been, there's been some budgetary concerns long range. But we all do seem to be working towards that together. People have brought forward new revenue ideas for increased efficiencies, and also sacrificing some things they've wanted for a long time. So really are coming together as a team. And I do note here that there seems to be a greater sense of long-term strategy surrounding county finances. And I think that's appreciated by everybody. So in brief, fiscal year 2023 recommended budget is at just over 24 million. This is notably about $500,000 shy of the current 22 amended budget. 39 million, almost 40 million for all funds that we budget for. So I want to talk about a few challenges to our budget. Of course, healthcare premiums are always one of the top expenses for benefits. We spend about $4 million a year on healthcare. This graph on this page will show you the trend. We've had a few dips in recent years. We've had some increases, but as a large employer, as a large group, our insurance rates are based on utilization. So the more we go to the doctor, the more surgeries we have, et cetera, the higher our rates will go. So I think that's just important to know that relationship. I know we've talked a little bit about a move to self-funded insurance. Right now we buy that high deductible plan off of the shelf. We have a health reimbursement arrangement, HRA, where we cover those costs down to certain deductibles for the employees. And then our carrier takes, if you will, that savings in between. And as we have a fairly healthy group, and as the health of that group might improve, that savings will increase. And that savings, if we were to go self-insured, that could be shared somehow with the employees, whether that be through reduced cost shares of premium the next year or so forth. But I do know we work together, we utilize our healthcare less, our premiums, excuse me, go down. For 2023 fiscal year, we did not look to increase employee cost shares for health premiums. So those will be staying the same as they are currently, which is essentially you have a choice between plan A, B, and C. The way cost shares are set up currently, the employee pays roughly 10% of plan A, 5% of plan B, and we still offer that free plan C. PA 152 is mentioned in the letter, and also later we'll see PA 152 resolution is actually included in the budget document, electing the opt-out exemption option. One thing that I know for sure is that if we're going to make any changes to healthcare, the culture of this employee group is that they need some time leading up to that. It's not a change that we're going to slap on someone at budget time. Some of those changes I think are worth looking at because there is significant savings there. But I think what needs to happen in order to make any changes is form what we've kind of talked about before, a county insurance committee. So I would encourage this board to take that action to form such a committee that would have representatives from all of our employee groups. Obviously that's so that information can be taken back and vetted through those groups by one of their members. And I would suggest the following groups to make up that membership. Someone from GELC, that's our Governmental Employees Labor Council, trial court employees. POAM, our deputies unit, someone from corrections unit, someone from the dispatchers unit, and the COAM command officers unit and dispatch supervisors unit. Someone from those 6 elected officials from the clerk, register of deeds, treasurer, PA, sheriff, clerk, drain, one of those electeds, one of the 4 judges, and someone from non-represented employees. I also feel myself and 1 or more up to 3 The Board of Commissioners, you start to get 4 Board of Commissioners, then we've got quorum issues. But I do think that that's something that should be formed and charged with considering and researching and analyzing design changes for our healthcare program and this self-funded option, right, for medical. We've heard 44 North tell us the savings to move from Blue Cross Blue Shield in a self-funded medical coverage arena would be about $500,000 annually to our general fund. So it is something we have to look at, but we have to leave Blues to get that savings, at least currently. So I think that's not a decision that anyone in this room unilaterally wants to make. And when we talked about it at finance last week, there was comfort in using fund balance to balance the budget rather than a move towards self-funded health insurance. But so more discussions to come on that. Hopefully we do form that committee. So right up next after healthcare is going to be retirement expenses. Remember, we have 2 retirement plans in the county. The defined benefit is that older, more traditional pension plan, currently with 49 active employees. I checked that number with Emma and payroll because I looked at our last valuation and it said we had 60 active employees. And the current count is 49. So that valuation was as of December 31st. And I checked in with Emma again and she said, indeed, almost 10 defined benefit folks have retired since the first of the year. So that obviously that active group is shrinking. And that's part of why our costs with defined benefit are so high, is because a few years ago, MERS says, hey, generationally, you can't kick the can down the road anymore. You have to fund current retirees right now. And so because we only have 49 actives left and we have all these people retired and drawing and vested, that is what's drawing up our payment to the MERS for the defined benefit pension. You can see here, it talks about what the monthly amount the county will send to MERS in fiscal 23. This is for that defined benefit piece, is almost $200,000, just over 196,000. Then that's to fund that defined benefit pension. Now the defined contribution pension, to fund that, that's easy math. The employee pays either 2 or 3% of payroll based on their bargaining agreement, and the county matches 7%. So what does that look like? Graphically, what we spend. This shows you annually the difference between the defined benefit being the red bar and the defined contribution being the gray bar. You can see back in 2018 where the defined benefit spikes. That's where this board entered into that option B with MERS, and we kind of smoothed out over time. I remember our payments were rising so much that we really couldn't afford them. So we kind of smoothed it out over time. You see the immediate effect, of course, was to drop that payment off, but you can see now we're right back up a little more than where we were. Some of that has to do with assumptions that MERS has changed. Remember recently they changed their return on investment assumption that took our assets and kind of lowered them. So it's going to cost our payments going to have to be more to make that up. When we implemented the wage increase, of course, that affects those final average compensations that pensions rely on. So that again drove it up. So that's your comparison between those two. I do want to say bright light at the end of the tunnel, not another train. By fiscal year 2035, the annual payment for the defined benefit will be limited to the normal cost of remaining active employees, which by 2035, probably not a lot of defined benefit folks still working with the county. We made that change right after the turn of the century, over 20 years ago. So it's 15 more years, 10, 12, 15 more years. There's probably not going to be too many defined benefit left active still. So it's good term in terms of the county budget. That is good for all we'll have is that normal cost. General fund revenues, I'm gonna just talk about two categories here that make up about 70% of the total revenues of general fund. The first one's property taxes. In the 23 recommended budget, the property taxes are forecasted to generate just over $15 million. We saw an 11% increase in our taxable value from 21-22, which basically is due to the wind turbines. We usually don't see that big of an increase in taxable value from year to year. And then remember, over time that will depreciate because those wind turbine tax revenues are derived from personal property. So the math doesn't really add up. If you look at that 11% increase in taxable value that equalization recorded, you would see on their paperwork, I think we were estimating to generate about 15.7 million in property tax revenue from that, our 6.61 operating levy, right? But you have to remember, of that amount, approximately 3.9% is what we figure is tapped annually by TIFA financing, right? Your DBAs, your TIFAs, your local development finance authorities. And that's to the tune of about $500,000 that those areas capture each year. And those are according to agreements that this board approves. So those are important to pay attention to when they come before you, present opportunities. The wind turbine tax revenues in fiscal 23 will be just over $1.8 million next year. Still, if you do the math, you take $500,000 off of that 15.7. It's like, well, Nicole, you're still a couple $100,000 shy. Why are you there? I think you know by now that we do budget very conservatively, and we know that we see them come through all the time. The Michigan Tax Tribunal judgments where we're giving back a portion of taxes that have already been paid, because a taxpayer went to the tribunal to plead their case that their taxable value should be lowered. Tax tribunal makes that judgment, and then we're paying back taxes. So just because we see an increase of 11% to taxable value doesn't mean we're gonna see and keep all those tax revenues necessarily. So we did build in a little bit for those unfortunate circumstances. State shared revenue is the other revenue piece I just wanted to mention. We all know that the state changed the game on state shared revenue several years ago in 2008, 2009, 2010, when the state budget was really hurting. They did make a cut. This graph shows we've never really recovered from that, although I am happy to report that the state has kind of renewed their interest in funding counties in this regard. In the 23 state budget has a 6% increase in state shared revenue. We are excited about that. So in 23, the county is expecting to receive about 1.4 million now in state shared revenue. So some other revenue that the general fund enjoys recently in the last few years, the general fund has incorporated indirect cost revenue. We see indirect cost revenue from Parks and Rec, from Commission on Aging, from Central Dispatch 911, from Building Inspections Fund, from Material Recovery Facility, and now from Public Defenders or Indigent Defense. In fiscal 23, those indirect costs total just over $784,000 to the general fund. And remember, these are basically covering the cost of doing business, covering the costs of admin, of the treasurer's office, of payroll, of finance, facilities, IT, all of that. We've talked about in the budget process applying indirect costs to outside agencies such as medical care facility, who just joined us, such as road commission, who we just joined a couple of weeks ago, health department, but there really wasn't an appetite in the finance committee for doing so. I mean, it might be a piece going forward, might be a roadmap to where we need to be and something we need to work on, but certainly not an interest in just sending them a bill, if you will. So maybe something we'll incorporate, see what other counties do in that regard. Transfers in to general fund come in the form of outside funds. Historically, we have transferred a large amount from delinquent tax revolving fund. The 23 recommended budget does include 200,000 in transfers from delinquent tax revolving fund to work towards balancing the budget. It includes over 131,000 from the sheriff's commissary fund. This is to fund his capital requests. So 2 vehicles and software and software that he's going to share with prosecutor's office, and also some jail tracker software they use in the correctional facility. So that covers all of his capital improvement requests except for $5,000 MMRMA RAP grant, which I'm sure he'll be very successful in writing. We also receive, the general fund has a transfer in of $11,000 from the automation fund. This is in our Register of Deeds office, and it pays for part of her part-time position. In the clerk's office, $29,655 is transferred in from the concealed pistol license fund, and that pays for half of a position in the clerk's office. Charges for services, they have been actually performing a little better since COVID. Things are kind of settling out to where we've budgeted just for a slight increase in charges for services for fiscal 23. We did do a review, perform a review of fees. And I think I talk about that a little later, but basically what we found was there's not a ton of room for fees that we charge. A lot of them are set statutorily. Some of the fees that I suggested we maybe look at, there were really good reasons from departments. Maybe that's not the place to balance the budget, or what about the negative impact that causes with the public. It just didn't seem like the right time to go down the fee route. We'll get to that section later in the document. The fee schedules are included in your budget document this year. So let's talk about some of the major general fund expenses. Salaries and wages are now at 42% of the general fund. This doesn't include benefits. We'll get to that, but just salaries and wages, 42%, and that includes a 2% cost of living allowance that was built into the recommended budget at a cost of just over $200,000 for the general fund. The 23 recommended budget does include a staffing change in general fund, and this is in the emergency management department. The recommendation is to approve the request to add a full-time emergency management coordinator position to the emergency management department, and it comes with the elimination of a part-time planner in that department. And general fund also pays half of a full-time admin assistant that's shared between 911 and emergency management. So we take those positions away. That position currently is not filled. We take the funding for that away. There's a very minimal cost to adding this full-time emergency management coordinator position. Entirely my hope, as it is Director Griffiths, that this position would come with the ability to write grants. And so, the emergency management planning grant will pay roughly 30% of this full-time salary, which actually will get us more general fund revenue than the few hours of Director Griffiths' time that he is able to apply to that. So it should be a win-win, and the other percent of that time, maybe they can help write grants for other areas of the county. So I'm really hopeful for that position to be approved. Fringe benefits stand at 24% of general fund expenditures. That includes everything from the MERS DB retirement, DC, Social Security, Medicare, workers' comp, all of that. Of course, some of them are standalone costs, like the MERS defined benefit, and some of them are a percentage of salary, like the Social Security and Medicare and workers' comp. Capital projects built into the General fund, I'm not gonna go through these because there'll be a page in the budget that basically talks about what I've recommended, but the total in the general fund is just over $200,000. General fund debt service, we have none currently. Fiscal 2020, the sheriff's office, trial court, admin building, upgrades were paid off. That was the last bond we had. Appropriations, the general fund appropriates just over $2 million to other funds and outside agencies. Those include GIS, Friend of the Court, Law Library, Child Care Fund, Social Welfare, which is at DHHS, Material Recovery Facility, Indigent Defense, which is your Public Defender's Office, Community Corrections, Community Mental Health, and Central Michigan District Health Department. Totaling $2 million. So I wanted to talk to you about some of the outstanding issues with the budget. I know Eric paid particular attention to this section in my letter. Thank you, sir. These were some of the things that were built in to the budget. Remember when the requested budget came out, it was a $4.6 million deficit. So we had a long way to go to get it to where it's at today. The last bullet point you'll see there is a usage of almost $475,000 of general fund unassigned fund balance to balance this budget. That is a little less money than the story last week at finance. So we were able to get a little further down the road, but I'll talk to you about some of the things we incorporated. First bullet point, we incorporated revenues of $25,000 attributed to performing a dog census. So this is actually where we go out and knock on doors and say, oh, I see you have a dog, but I don't see that you have a dog license. If you'd like to purchase one, here's how you do that. And sometimes just an advertisement in the paper can invoke a lot of folks to come in to say, hey, we're going to do this dog census. They just kind of come on in and get those licenses. Other times it does take knocks on the door. Originally, we had a lot of revenue attributed to this, and because of a good information, a frank conversation with Treasurer Pickens, we've backed that down to about 25,000. But I do think some form of a dog census could bring in some more revenues, and that perpetuates, right? Once they come in and buy that dog license, they're probably going to get it the next year and the next year and the next year, or at least in 3 years if they buy a 3-year. So second bullet point, we continued funding of the senior assistant prosecuting attorney position with ARPA funds. This came about in the current budget for the first time. The board approved the use of ARPA funds for that position. I am under the assumption, prosecuting attorney is under the assumption that was going to continue to be paid with ARPA as long as we have the ARPA funds to do that. Prosecuting attorney knows that if the funding goes away, the position goes away. So we have incorporated ARPA dollars in the budget for that continuing position. Increased revenues from federal inmate housing and transport by $110,000. This was in conversations with sheriff. Those are two different line items, one for federal inmate housing and one for the federal inmate transport. Both line items have been performing very well. Sheriff did just complete the application to increase the daily rate in our renewed contract, and we're really hopeful that that will come through. So that could even serve to increase these revenues even more once we get that. But we felt very confident in increasing the revenues by that $110,000. One of the things we did was remove the $50,000 budgeted for contingencies. I've never seen this board need money and go to the contingency line. I've always seen this board go to undesignated or unassigned fund balance. Fund balance is always your contingency fund. So the fact that we have $50,000 budgeted every year is nice, but we never think to go there. So we just removed it from the budget. It's in your fund balance. We reallocated community development director wages and benefits. So in the current fiscal, they stand at 100% out of the general fund. But really that director does perform duties that affect other funds. So we've broken out those wages and benefits to only 50% general fund, 10% GIS fund, 40% inspections fund, and the total reduction in expenses that results in is almost $65,000. We increased revenues from recreational marijuana sales by 125,000. This was assuming that there will be 4 dispensary retail outlets, I think is the term, in the county as of the date that they're going to determine next year's revenues. So we increased revenues by 110,000 for the annual opioid settlement dollars that we will start to receive in fiscal, maybe this year, actually. I think those payments will start to go out in August. That'll be good news for this year too, but good news for next year, and I believe 18 more years going forward. We recognized $100,000. Oh, I skipped one. Incorporated $20,000 additional revenue. Thank you, County Clerk, for newly established cremation permits. So excellent new revenue idea. We did recognize in the recommended budget $100,000 in savings by going self-funded with prescriptions. Okay, this doesn't mean leaving blues for medical. This leaves all the medical the same, but it does move our prescriptions only to the self-funding realm. And when we do that, we're anticipated to save $100,000. This is one change from last week's finance. Met with 44 North later in the week last week. We finally got numbers back on our disability, our life and disability coverage benefits. If we stay with the same vendor, there was no change in rates. If we change to Lincoln, and made some changes to the disability benefit, there was a $27,500 savings. I still have to vet this with legal counsel because I'm trying to determine where did the long-term disability benefit begin for non-union employees. We have the benefit, we pay for the benefit, but it's not in the personnel policy that we offer that benefit. I'm not sure how that benefit started. It might have been when we changed a carrier, they had some attractive offer, so we took it and we've just maintained it. But I can't see where we have to have that benefit for non-represented employees. Some of the union contracts have it built in that would have to be negotiated if that was our desire. But I can tell you, not a lot of employees benefit from long-term disability. I can tell you administratively, it's tough benefit. But I think where the better bang for the buck is to take $5,000 of the savings from eliminating long-term disability on non-represented employees and put that $5,000 into an incentive-based wellness program. So what that looks like is you've lost 10 pounds, here's a $50 gift card. Oh, you want a membership to here's a percentage towards a membership, some type of financially incentivized wellness program. Again, go back to the first of the letter, that healthcare premium that depends on our utilization. A wellness program will start to help us all in that regard, keep our expenses down. Let's see, the last thing on here was, again, the usage of almost $475,000 of fund balance to balance the revenues with expenditures in this budget. I feel it is my responsibility to bring you a balanced budget, and it's hard for me not to have done that. I did bring some ideas to Finance Committee about how we could get there. Again, like leaving Blue Cross Blue Shield to self-fund medical is not an attractive not an attractive maneuver. But I felt like the finance committee had comfort in using the nearly $500,000 in fund balance rather than making some of those tough changes. I feel like what this is proving out really too is that, and I keep saying it, is an influx of new revenues that's needed by the general fund. This just, the fact that we need $500,000 of fund balance to balance the budget, it proves out those forecasts that show we need something more. At the bottom of the outstanding issues, I've noted that I do believe a hiring freeze should be implemented. That doesn't mean that we won't hire anyone going forward. It just means that we're going to take a thoughtful review when a position becomes vacant instead of just knee jerking to fill that. Some of these efficiencies we've learned over the last few years, maybe they can be incorporated. To carry on with outstanding issues, financial forecast tool. Obviously, we're going to maintain that. We're going to keep improving it. One thing we've recognized recently, we do need to separate out wages and benefits. You can't apply accelerators to a wage increase and assume that MERS and healthcare is going to follow that same accelerator. So we understand that those need to be separated out, and we will be working soon to do that, because pretty soon it's going to be audit time. Material recovery facility, another outstanding issue. Obviously, we all know that there's currently a feasibility study going on there, and we're anxious to see those results hopefully by the end of this fiscal year. Current fiscal year budget has $450,000 appropriated to the MRF, and the fiscal 23 recommended is at $400,000. I've got, of course, the sheriff's office and correctional facility project on here as one of the main issues going forward. And obviously we continue to move forward with that project. I do want you to know that the project continues to undergo scrutiny. We continue to revise components. Sheriff, again, is undergoing another value engineering exercise, trying to see where savings could be made without messing with the integrity or the security or safety of the facility. And really what I say in here has become interesting to me, but really I think that the stability of that USDA loan at 2.125% really has become the bright spot of that forecast over the years, because we've got that locked in for 40 years. One of the things, the discussions from the correctional facility project has brought forward is, what are we going to do with the existing facility when sheriff's office and correctional facility is moved out? And discussions are just starting regarding potential juvenile detention facility. So that's very exciting, because it could help actually make some revenue for the county. One of the toughest things I dealt with in the fiscal 23 recommended budget was the personnel requests. We had, I think, 9 reclassification requests come through. And our policy says when a reclassification request comes through, it'll be sent out to a third party for review. I think I mentioned to the board a couple of months ago, I had touched base with the third party that the county had used in the past to take a look at our new structure. And basically, I think the way I say it here is our structure has failed to produce a strong methodology for wage structures. And I never thought I would touch this in my career, but I am recommending that we do another wage study to better align ourselves. The third party that I reached out to would not touch our current system.
Wow.
It's a little surprising, but if you think about the time involved between when the study was performed and when it was implemented, there were some issues certainly in that. And I've never thought that this person, this position should ever unilaterally decide what people make. There's professionals that do that. There's a reason our policy says it should go out for that professional review. So that is my recommendation. Obviously, I didn't want to increase the expenses of the budget anymore. And then there's that little thought of, well, if we do the study, what if it, comes back with higher wages? Our forecast is already that we can't afford those wages, but I think we want to right size it regardless of what right is. And then we'll need to make the tough decisions. If wages need to be here and we can't employ everyone at that wage, then we're going to have to employ less if you want to keep people at that wage. That's easy math. Part of what I recommend that the wage study be done a little differently. I feel like that difference between that defined benefit and defined contribution retirement ought to be considered. There's a definite value difference there to the employee. And also our 37.5-hour work week should be considered when we're comparing and benchmarking against 40-hour week employees. Difference. Also, I would recommend that this be done in conjunction with a mandated services study. Right, so that not only tells you where they should be in the market, but that tells you how many people there should be, how many people it should take to do that job. Okay. So it pretty much gives you all the information you need to make tough decisions going forward, and hopefully would provide us with a good structure for considering classification requests going forward. The last item on this letter is about something that came about in department meetings, discussion regarding employees' desire to move the annual cost of living allowance and their COLA, their step increases, move them from January 1st to October 1st of the fiscal. Also, along with that, doing our PTO payouts at the beginning of the fiscal year rather than January 1st. So this is something that a growing number of employees are asking for. I think moving the payout of PTO to the beginning of the fiscal year really doesn't change anything. We'd keep PTO caps in place. They can't carry over anymore. You can't be paid out anymore. It really doesn't change things. So I don't see why that couldn't be moved to the first of the fiscal year. To change a cost of living allowance to the first of the fiscal year, obviously there is an impact because our budget is from October to September. We give pay increases in January. So we really only have to build in 3/4 of that increase, if you will, in the budget, right? So to move that to October 1st would take about 1/4 of the cost of your whole COLA increase, which we know is about $208,000 for general fund. So roughly $50,000-$60,000 would get the job done. I'm not recommending it be done because that's going the wrong way in the budget. But basically what I said in my letter is basically maybe the board wants to parlay that. I don't know if it looks like we're going to end up current fiscal better than we thought. So certainly if we end it better, the board could think about moving that up in the fiscal year in October. Maybe. Another request that came from the employees was allowing the PTO, the payout of PTO throughout the year, right? So some of our union groups have that where if you have, once you have so much PTO, you can get paid out half of it up to so many hours. And so any time of the year, they can say to HR, I want to pay out of X amount of hours. Obviously, there's some budgetary implications there because we budget a wage for a person. We assume either they're going to be working or we're going to pay PTO for them. And we assume a certain amount of that PTO is used each year. And so the amount of PTO payouts we budget for reflects that assumption. if people are allowed to cash in PTO instead of use it, that's an extra expense. I think with tight parameters, like some of those union contracts have, you can only do it when you hit so many hours. You can only do it for half of your hours. You can only do it up to so many. I think it could work if we have those parameters tightened down, but this request coming from employees that I think could be meaningful if we address. One easy thing I think that can be changed is our policy says if you don't use half of the PTO that you earn in a year, you lose it. Commissioner, that might have been the same when you were here. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that policy or not, but we don't traditionally in practice, we never take it away. We never follow policy in that regard. So my suggestion in that regard is I think I'm going to approach the board probably in September of let's strike that from the policy. We don't follow it. I don't know that we've ever followed it. We don't take away PTO. So I don't feel like it's going to be a big hit to the budget either, because it's really how it's been in practice the last several years. Okay, moving from my letter. This is really fun. This is your budget resolution. Shows that we follow the General Appropriations Act and the things that that requires. This shows the $24 million budget through the levying of the 6.61 mils. It's got all of these levies that you saw with this meeting and 2 weeks ago, those requests. So those special millages are on there along with the county operating. It lists your salaries as district commissioners, and it includes the 2% increases for other electeds in the county. If you didn't know, the budget resolution talks about the staffing roster in the budget, which I think is one of the next pieces. And that sets the staffing level for the county. So anything above and beyond that would have to come back to you for approval. Talks about giving the administrator controller the duty really to reduce appropriations when the budget looks like it's going to fall short. It talks about the payment of bills and how we send those to Finance Committee to audit, and gives this board final authorization to pay those bills. Talks about allowing the county administrator controller to perform budget amendments up to certain amounts, right? Within funds, up to $50,000 for non-equipment, up to $25,000 for equipment purchases. What was missing from this budget resolution, what we added this year is that next whereas, or be it therefore, or be it further resolved, that the Board of Commissioners is the only body authorized to amend the budgets in amounts greater than that, right? You give the authority to the administrator controller to amend the budget for amounts below that, but when it's in amounts greater than that, this board needs to approve it, or when it's an amount that will increase the overall adopted budget. You adopted that budget, you have the authority only to increase that amount. I can say, oh, let's take this expense down and raise this up. We can keep the budget, I can keep the budget the same, but anytime you're increasing it overall, it comes to this board. Talks about contracts being allowed to be drafted by the county administrator and signed by the chairperson if legal approves of those. Sometimes there's not time to bring those to the board. And thank you, Commissioner Swaney, for your advice to add this next paragraph, that the Board of Commissioners chairperson be authorized to sign grant applications to apply for funding where necessary and appropriate for county programs and services, provided the approval and acceptance of the grant funding subsequently comes back before this full board. So what Commissioner Sweeney has essentially done is saved you guys some time, right? You don't have to come to the board to ask to apply and then come back to the board to ask to accept. If it's ultimately this board that's going to consider the acceptance and approval, then chairman can sign that application. So hopefully that simplifies these things in the future, makes things more efficient. Also added in this next paragraph, you've always approved the special revenue funds, but now we have in here the 2023 department fee schedules and the capital improvement plan. So let's check these things out. The next is that PA 152 resolution that we promised you would be part of this budget document. And it does explain the options under the act and that this board is electing to opt out or exempt itself. So you can set those cost shares wherever you want. Again, recommended budget at 24 million, about 500,000 less than the current fiscal 2 amended budget. Oh, where do we want to go from here? I do want to go into the revenues. Here we go. Sorry, this is a little clunky. Here's where you see the 13.2 from property taxes, the 1.8 from wind turbines. So that gets you to that just over 15 million we talked about for taxes in the budget. One big change from current year, you're going to see that federal and state go way down from 6.3 to 4.5 million. That's budgeting to not use as much ARPA dollars as we have in the current fiscal. Everything else is holding pretty similar, except delinquent tax revolving transfer in is now at 200,000. Here's your commissary transfer in, your register of deeds, automation fund, your indirect costs, your CPL, your use of fund balance, all of those things we talked about. By far, taxes, right, is our greatest revenue source. Expenditures, really holding the line here. The big thing I want to talk about is legislative. That's you, that's the Board of Commissioners. Why did it go up so much? We've built some ARPA dollars in there, and I will talk to you about what those are when we get to the detail. Right now, expenditures, no surprise, 35% public safety, 29% general government, 20% judicial. Those are the big ones. Go into a little detail of the expenditures. This is where I want to talk to you a little bit about ARPA dollars. You see the Board of Commissioners going from just over 200,000 in the current amended budget to 565,000 in 23. That includes, we'll get to an ARPA page, 245,000 in ARPA dollars for premium pay. This would be global essential pay that the ARPA work group recommended for $1,000 for full-time employees, $500 for part-time employees who work during the declared state of emergency and who are still employed with the county. $75,000 for the wage study. ARPA dollars was built into Board of Commissioners, and then also 150,000 for that AV upgrade to 225 and 320. All ARPA dollars, all built into that department. So please, everyone, the Board of Commissioners did not give themselves raises with the ARPA dollars. That's just where we kind of parked that ARPA money in the budget, if you will. Everything else really holding, not surprising. Maybe the departments that we see that are lower in fiscal 23 are admin. You know, I've chosen not to fill the deputy administrator position at this time. It's not budgeted for, so that's a large decrease there. Animal control, you're going to see also come down. Sheriff has chosen not to fill the position there. And then also community development is down because of that, how we're separating out those wages and we're allocating 50% to general fund of the director's wages, 10% to GIS and 40% to inspections. Other than that, everything else really holds. Here you see a lot of those transfers out and appropriations to those outside agencies. Doesn't take long to spend $24 million, does it? I do want to point out this FTE list. FTE stands for full-time equivalents. We've kind of gone back and forth on how we treat this list, but now we've decided now and going forward, this list is going to show positions we've budgeted for. Whether or not the position is filled, whether or not it's vacant, doesn't matter. If the position is in the budget, it's on this list. You'll see in admin, you'll see us go from 7 FTEs to 6 FTEs. That's what I just talked about, because the deputy position is not budgeted for. I want to point out in prosecuting attorney's office, they're going from 14 to 15 FTEs. That doesn't mean that they added a position. It just means that this year, we decided how we're going to do it is whatever is in the budget is the number of FTEs. I believe last year they had a vacant position, so it wasn't counted in FTEs, but really it's a position. And your budget document sets this staffing roster as the number of positions you have. So we want to make sure it is accurate. So that is, if you see any discrepancies in there and you think, well, I didn't get an extra position, you probably didn't. It's just how we're deciding to do it going forward. You should see in emergency management that go up. However, as I look at it, it's not going up because we're taking away some positions there. So let's see, after the roster is the personnel requests. So this signifies all the general fund and outside fund personnel requests. You see over here in the comments, whether it was a reclassification or a restructure. Reclassification is basically taking the current position and saying this position, the same duties they're doing should be something else, right? A restructure is saying we need this number of people to do the job. They need to be this title or this grade. The highlighted areas are what I'm recommending. The ones I'm not recommending are reclassifications for the reasons I've talked about. I talked a little bit about the emergency management coordinator and general fund. The other positions up there that are approved, that are recommended to be approved are in central dispatch 911. And that is also a restructure where Director Griffiths, he's had that deputy director position for, has been vacant for several years. Also that admin assistant I talked about that the general fund shares with 911 50-50. So he's giving up that director position, giving up that an admin assistant position to restructure into 2 operations managers at the at 911. Director Griffiths knows his shop and he knows his needs and he knows how to cover those shifts. And I think with the savings of giving up those other positions, I think this restructure is going to work well for him. Capital requests, these are for general fund. Again, the highlights are what's being recommended for your approval. The 2 at the top, the lighting retrofits, those were not recommended because they're being pulled into the current year. You will see a staff report soon from Facilities Director Shoemaker on those. He's already got them bid out. We've already got the bids back. And it looks like, I don't want to steal his thunder, but this is too good to be true. Like a 7-month payback on these projects, just switching out the fluorescents. And this Yes, we're in the 21st century, folks. Yes, we are coming. Other capital improvements, the boiler at the courthouse, sealing and painting of the parking lot at the courthouse, some air unit replacements at animal shelter and the health department. We talked about those capital requests from the sheriff's office. Vehicles and software. There's two capital requests that I did not recommend going forward, but I talked at length a few times with finance committee about these. One's is a pickup truck in the drains department. The current truck that drains have is not that old. I want to say it's maybe a 2015. It's got low miles on it, like under 50,000 miles. So the theory is they could trade it in now, get a decent amount for it. We do really good with my deal, so we wouldn't have as much into a new truck that maybe we could trade in more frequently. Other train of thought is it's a newer truck with low miles and could last us a few years. So being general fund dollars, I could not recommend it going forward. So if this board, if your train of thought is more along the line of trading in more frequently and capturing that value, please let me know. The beauty of this is we have a lot of time still to work in changes before you adopt the budget. The other request that I did not move forward was from information systems. This would be an upgrade to the video surveillance at the downtown campus, county building, admin building, sheriff's trial court. I'm not recommending that going forward at this time. Capital improvement requests, you'll notice quite a theme here. Capital improvement requests from outside funds. If it's not general fund and you've got the money, if it's in your plans for the future, it's gonna get approved to go forward for your consideration. We've got some new CAD equipment for the next gen 911 requested at for the computer aided dispatch. Again, Commission on Aging had a lighting retrofit project that we pulled back into this year, looking for a Chevy Traverse versus the smaller Ford Escape that they have, something that they can fit the larger durable medical equipment in the back end when they go out. Door replacements, funny thing, a building built, all the doors were new and all the doors need replaced at the same time, right? So that's what that is in there for. Furnace replacement at non-secure, a boiler replacement at Bay Treatment. Lake Isabella Water Supply does have rehab of well number 1 on here. Remember, well number 2 rehab is already approved in the current budget. Parks and Rec has a slew of projects and capital that they're trying to get done in fiscal 23. A lot of needs there. Finally, Gatehouse at Herrick and Deerfield, maybe pavilion at Deerfield, playground at Herrick, Pure Marquette Rail Trail seal coating, perhaps the sewer project at Coldwater Lake. With possible ARPA funding there, a new online campground reservation system, that'll be fun, Suzanne. And at the Murph high-low replacement and a new furnace for the facility. The parking lot seal and paint at MIDC or the Public Defender's Office, that was not approved or recommended going forward because it actually bid in under the cost of a capital project. So we actually got lucky with that one. This is new in your budget document. I believe we're supposed to have a capital improvement plan in our budget document, and this will be fun for our forecast going forward. Right now, it's a 1-page, mostly this is facilities capital improvement. The fiscal 23 column does match, the amounts in the recommended budget. And we're just working to get things on paper, right, to make that plan going forward so there's no surprises, right? A roof replacement should never surprise us unless it's an emergency project. I believe also in the future, what the capital improvement plan should include are things like the vehicles and the software, anything capital. So we will work to update this with other departments on it as well. Also new in your budget, we put a form in here for ARPA dollars built into the project. So it was very clear to you. We talked about the wage study, the AV upgrades, the global essential pay. The ARPA work group did recommend up to 250,000 in ARPA dollars for the Cowater Lake Family Park Sewer Project. We talked about that senior assistant prosecuting attorney funding, and then also built in the 23 recommended budget would be 200,000 in the delinquent tax revolving fund for the foreclosure prevention program. That was also recommended by the ARPA work group. So just over $1 million for those things in fiscal 23 from ARPA dollars. The next several pages in the budget document, I'm sorry, I'm just going to try to go through these so they're not take too much time. The only thing I want to talk to you about fees, there was only one fee schedule change of these, all the fees from all the departments in your budget pack. And that was the impound fees for animal control for a dog. In the past, that impound fee used to accelerate. It was $35 for the first day, and then I think maybe 45 for the second day, 55, not day, offense. 35 for the first offense, 45 for the second offense, 55 for the third offense. Well, operationally, it's really difficult for the HATS employees at the shelter to know, is this your first, second, or third offense? Operationally, it's caused some issues. So we're just recommending that impound fee go to one flat $35 fee. Sheriff is on board with this change as well. We realize it doesn't do anything to increase revenues, but it does enhance operations and takes care of an issue. So I just would point out that one fee that was changed. But it is interesting as you look through here, who has fees? They're statutory when the last time they looked at them. These are opportunities going forward. We are coming to the end. I am not going to go through any of the detail of the numbers. The last half of the document really drills down into the details of these things. I just want to point out, starting on page 45, these are your special revenue funds. We are required by law to have a budget for these funds as well. For some reason, my cursor is not picking up. There you go. I really love the way Melissa lays this out, because you can see, did this fund transfer to general fund? Did this get a transfer from general fund? Does this fund pay indirect costs? It's a really good picture of what the interaction is, what the relationship is between some of these funds and general fund. So special revenues fund start there. We go proprietary funds, start on page 50. And you can see in recycling fund, the MRF especially, this is interesting, right? Because they get this $400,000 transfer from general fund, but they give us almost 138,000 in indirect costs, right? So it's always important when we look at these funds to really understand the give and take with general fund. Again, detail starts on page 52. I am not going to dive through that. You guys have the detail there. You can ask me questions. I'm happy to answer any questions now about the budget document. I think the biggest thing to point out is that we have over a whole month before you adopt this budget. So there's lots of time now to talk about things, to bring more ideas to the table if you want, to research things, to say, Nicole, I don't like that idea, or Nicole, why didn't you think about this? We've got time now. Remember, you're going to set your public hearing tonight for a couple of weeks, but we've got an opportunity then to discuss it as well. So with that, sorry, no stats. Sorry, no pictures, but I felt that was what was important for you to know.
Commissioners, any questions for the county administrator controller? Yes, Commissioner Jablonski.
I apologize. I didn't read the Morning Sun yet. I looked at it as I came into the building and I saw the administrator and the hiring freeze, which I commend you because we either have to have new revenues or we're going to have to increase or decrease costs. And that's the one big area that we can do that with. And I know I've gone through 2 counties that went through that process, and it doesn't always mean a position gets eliminated. But sometimes just creatively, departments can work together and combine the positions, and there's ways of thinking out of the box to get the same amount of work done for less. But I think I remember in both those counties, which is Gratiot and Clinton, the hiring freeze was part of the budget resolution. And I didn't see that in here. Is this just an administrative function? Because it does impact services. And I would think that the county board would have, the final say. It could be a department head wants to appeal a decision too from administration.
If you want that language built into the budget resolution, we certainly can do that. Now, because the way it reads now, it's that staffing level roster that determines it. So a department would not have to come back to the board for approval to fill the position. But I think that language could be written into where even in the resolution, you could either set the hiring freeze and say that they had to come back to this board for approval. Or you could say if a hiring freeze was enacted, they would have to come back. Either
And I
way,
know
it's
there's
the same thing.
these ifs and, things that always come in, but I remember too, in Clinton County, I think it was, they didn't require that for Parks and Recreation because of all the seasonal positions and that constantly turn over. But anyhow, it was just a question. What is a
Sure.
proper procedure to do that?
I think it's a great question. I know a couple years ago when we did the hiring pause in the budget, there was absolutely $0 saved from it. It didn't come back to the board, but there, in all honesty, I think that in that time frame, retirements or terminations that we had, they weren't in general fund, or they just ended up with no savings. And so that's why there wasn't any savings built in to the budget in 23 from a hiring freeze, but a recommendation of going that route. So please let me know your feedback if that's something you'd like written in the resolution. Kind of solidifies it a little more.
Commissioner Swaney.
Wait.
Yeah, I'm on. My thoughts on that is, when you mentioned the hiring freeze, you kind of stated it as review of each position and whether it would be necessary. And I don't, this board has enough I mean, as a commissioner, I don't have enough information whether a operation 911 can be removed, right? Obviously, we would bring Marcus Griffiths in to discuss that, but I think that's really an administrative position. That's why we have you here. And the board has to lay on that. It's obvious from your outlay of, this budget did in cost savings. And so I would be wary of putting in a freeze in that have our basically our hands, cuffed, need to hire people, and we have to wait for a board of commissioners to approve people to be hired in positions. That's hard enough to get employees hired in to positions in this day and age, and adding another difficulty, I think, is something that we should avoid.
Commissioner Jablonski again.
I would just say, don't call it a hiring freeze then, because I think procedurally, while none of the boards are that in depth and knowledge of how the county operates, we do depend on the administration, but it does provide a venue for people that don't agree to come for a final review. But I'm very comfortable with Nicole. I think she's already demonstrated ability in her own office to look at cost savings and so with that said,
Maybe what we need to write into the resolution is that it's administratively handled, but if there's disagreement, that a department head or elected has like an appeal process to this board. Maybe that's what's written in, because that's almost kind of what I'm hearing from you, is that there was that, at least that opportunity to make it to this board.
Would you want to go in front of the full board, or would you want to put that through a committee as far as an appeal process?
So it's a tough.
Yeah, because that might be, each committee seems to be more geared into their area. I would make it,
I like that.
I don't want to put it, I think the commissioners certainly should be involved if you're going to do that, but again, that is your ballot, that is your area of expertise where, and then I would probably maybe do an appeal to the committee. And then maybe, that's one thought. I don't know how that would structure out or if that could be done, but
Mhm.
I mean, commissioners, I don't know if that would be agreeable, kind of a halfway thought on it, but.
I'm in agreement with that.
Commissioners, anything else? Nicole, I really like the budget presentation. I think it's very thorough. In Finance Administration Committee, we're on TV now. We're kind of there's a lot of stuff that we talk about in there that, the going forward and carrying forward. I'm a big harper on things like, okay, well, this is in our budget this year, but this is just a one and done. This carries forward from here to, as Buzz Lightyear, I think I quoted, from here to eternity and beyond, or infinity and beyond. So, we talked, and again, we focused in on, the 2% COLA increase every year and, staying competitive. And I think that's something that this year is a good thing. But going forward, we talked about if you save that 251 year, that's $250,000 you don't carry forward. So you have to look at that every single year. Same with healthcare. We talked in committee about, you mentioned about going away from the blues. I mean, that's a tough call because I've had personal experience in the entity actually that they're looking at, and I would give it 2 thumbs down. So I would be very cautious in switching. Now, looking at cost savings, doing cost shares or wellness programs, going self-funded. The prescription drug program that's going self-funded. Again, those are things that's not affects this year, but carries forward in other years. So a lot of good stuff in the budget, but we're still at a deficit. And
Exactly.
we talked about that in committee. We've got a history of being very conservative in our budgets. I think when we do the snapshot in time, we're sitting at roughly, we're probably going to come when we get the September 30th snapshot. Most departments, I'm going to say, is probably going to be about 90 in 90% or 90 to 95. So that's a 5% rate on the budgets, right in the department shares. And that's why our budget, our pull from our unreserved fund balance every year that is not as great. We've had some lemonade from the COVID situation with art money and things like that. That money's not always going to be there. We have to be very careful in our spend with that. So it's not dollars that we spend and for ongoing programs in the future that we have to cover. So you're doing a wonderful job. Keep it up. We've had some issues in the past as far as forecasting goes and, whether to set up a program, whether, in the past, we've kind of budgeted, we talked about a budgets for 1 year and not look forward. Commissioner Jelezinski was a big proponent of that over the years, getting a budget set up. We've gone from a 3-year forecast. Now we're 10 years out, and it's a roadmap. It's a beginning. And especially if you have to go and do other things for raising revenue, the community is very supportive, but at the same time, the community is very cautious with their wallets. Myself being one of them pretty soon, commissioners. So actually I'm conservative now with the wallet, but you know, it's a very fine line that you're walking. And again, we didn't even talk about with the jail project coming up. That's going to be, again, a big hit, two big things going forward with the retirements and with the jail. Those are going to be in that forecast from here to a long time. You're talking 2035, you mentioned, and that's just that. So, yeah. So good job on that. I think it was very good presentation. Commissioners, anything else before we move on?
I just wanted to say that, this is so. So appreciate all the.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Nicole. Anything under the Isabella County Administrator Controller report?
Yeah, unfortunately, I
You want-
left
you wanna
that,
take a-
I
you
left
want-
it on there for a
Do
reason.
you want to
sorry.
take a sip of water or something like that? Because
I
you're
did.
going pretty good
I
there.
did.
so.
Well, first thing off in my report, I do have a report, but first thing off, I want to make sure you all know I did not do the budget single-handedly, of course, and so I want to thank a whole number of people. Notably, Miss Jessica Drosowitz at the end of the table. Thank you, ma'am. Miss Emily Port, our HR and benefits payroll specialist. She provided a lot of information for the numbers. Certainly accountant Chris Whitmer, hello back there. And accountant Melissa Franquist, who I don't know how you do it, lady. I am so impressed with you through this process. Doesn't matter what time of day or night I would call. She's there to bounce things off from, and it just, I think in my letter said you proved your undying devotion to public service through the development of that document. So thank you. I had a lot of changes this year. You put up with all of them, and I can't wait to make the next one even better. So thank you, thank you, thank you. My report. Congratulations to commissioners for the election results. Excited for November, certainly. One thing I keep close now, I keep close these days. I just want to remind everyone the suicide prevention hotline number is now 988 nationwide. It's pretty important. It's a pretty good move. Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, it is now called. I was also going to thank Ginny, our newest staff member, but I see she stepped out. Hopefully some of you met her last Tuesday at committees. We have hired Ginny McLeod in admin as our AP clerk. I do want to let you know, in between now and the last meeting, we did have an interesting issue with our Right Express gas cards. So if you picture the deputies and the MRF drivers, inspections, anyone like COA, anyone who used gas for county operations goes to the pump, they use that Right Express WEX gas card. And apparently, postal delivery expectations have changed in recent years, and our payment didn't reach Right Express. So we get this email, very scary, of we're gonna decline your cards. Now, wouldn't that be a headliner for you, Sheriff? If your deputies went to the pump and couldn't get any gas. So we frantically, work with how to get them their money. The treasurer's office was great to work with us to get the money wired so that nothing happened. But I do want to let you know through that whole process that the credit limit with Right Express was increased so that this doesn't happen. It's kind of funny. We increase budgets. We see the cost at the pump. We know fuel is going to cost more, but we don't think to increase those gas cards. So I just want to make you aware that was done. And thank you again, Melissa, Jessica, Treasurer's Office, for helping us not skip a beat and maybe have a really bad day for sheriff or the MRF drivers or COA drivers or other people. So I do want to say I went out to the Isabella County Youth and Farm Fair. Our Veterans Affairs Director, Ian Welch, has a booth out there, and Sheriff always has a good presence out there. And I just want to say, when I walked up and saw the sheriff's vehicle with the lights on, and you had some police clerks there, I think you had a part-time correction officer there, maybe a command officer. And it didn't take me but a second to see the positive impact that had of you being there, and that the interaction with the parents and the kids wanting to sit in the back of that car and the kids just beaming when they get their gold star, like they're the sheriff. I just, what an impact. And it really makes me feel like the county ought to have more presence out there at that county fair. So you might see something like that going forward, but kudos, Sheriff. Well done. Tom Hausman, our public defender, invited me out to the public defender's office last week. I got to meet Barb. I'm not even going to try to attempt her last name. She's Polish, from MIDC. And she came to visit the office. I got to meet her then. And so thank you, Tom, for arranging that. It was wonderful. I want to thank the Road Commission for allowing us to use their facility last meeting. What a building, what a thoughtful design. So it's very motivating what they were able to do with the financing of that building. Speaking of financing buildings, Sheriff Maine is at the forefront really of really trying to make this work, right? And he's giving up things certainly on his wish list. And as I mentioned earlier, undergoing another value engineering exercise to just really get those costs down, minimize without sacrificing integrity of the building, basically. Clark Construction Company at this point, last meeting, we talked about going out for bid again because maybe the bids wouldn't be still honored when we're ready. Maybe costs have changed, but what Clark Construction Company actually recommends at this point is instead of going back out for bid to renegotiate with current vendors, that the winning vendors so far, because in fact, some of these vendors have brought forward some value engineering ideas themselves, right? If you do this, it'll save this much. You could change this to this and it'll save this much. So working with those current vendors might actually get us an improved price from where we're at. So I think that's just another positive. We're going in the right direction, at least. And you may have noticed, and maybe you'll talk about it when we get there in just a moment, the adjustment list for August 11th did include the new payroll report. I talked to you at finance about this report coming. So that final page of that adjustment list was the new payroll report. We can talk more about it when you get to that point on your agenda if you want, but we'll be improving on that going forward too. I just wanted to make sure it got in front of the commissioners what a normal payroll costs, you know, how much our deductions and expenses, get some form of board approval on those payments, right, of payroll that go out. So that's why that is before you. And then the last thing I have on here is that, as I talked to you before, I focused on the budget in the budget presentation rather than department accomplishments and statistics. So if there are departments that you want to hear from, please let us know. I know you would just love to listen to me all night, but that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Administrator Controller Frost. Anybody have any questions on that? Hearing and seeing none, we'll get out of presentations and special reports and move down to appointments to boards and commissioners.
Okay, the first item on that is consider approving the fiscal year. Whoops.
No.
Consider accepting with regret the resignation of William Rendell as Isabella County Remonumentation Representative effective immediately.
For those that don't know Mr. Rudell, he's been with the county quite a long time doing this. Has done it very well. I think Ms. Jackson in her report stated that, and so with regret, we're going to do this, but I think he's served the county for a long time and in a great role. I'm going to turn over to Mr.
Alex,
Engler.
I'm on the remonumentation committee, but yeah, he knows where a lot of the old markers are, and he's been doing it for so many years that he'll be sorely missed. That he does it, done it forever, so he will be missed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, number B is consider appointing John H. Rouser to serve as Isabella County Remonumentation Representative effective.
Okay, I don't know, Mr. Rouser, do you,
Not met him.
again, Karen Jackson, she signed her name to it and that's good enough for me. So that we'll just go forward with that tonight. So thank you. Next up, committee reports, Finance and Administration Committee, party of one tonight. So.
Hello, the first item of business is consider ratifying and placing on file the July 29th, 2022 invoice list in the amount of $298,301.29. The August 5th, 2022 invoice list in the amount of $309,185.78, and the adjustment list dated August 11th. We looked at these, all these lists in committee and didn't determine that there was anything unusual. I don't think anybody had any questions. Oh, I did have one question on the July 29th, the Chippewa Township Treasurer in Union Township, the amount of the 2022 set, exactly what that was about. And that was explained by Administrator Frost. I'm trying to remember what you told us now.
And I'm glad Kathleen Schaefer is in the audience so she can check my answer. Please check my answer if this isn't right. It's for the local townships who have to send out summer bills for the state education tax. Townships wouldn't otherwise have a tax bill to send out, but because they have to levy the state education tax, the state reimburses them $2.50 per parcel to the treasurer.
No, I
And
remember.
Kathleen's shaking her head.
I remember, and maybe if I hear it a third time, it'll put it to memory and permanent.
That helps. See, we didn't even go down that far. It's not general fund money. Correct.
All the rest of the items were either approved in the budget or are very customary. Does anybody have any questions about the July 29th list? Moving on to the August 5th list. Again, everything is typically payments we make in the on the quarter or for services provided for the courts and childcare. Do you have any questions on the August 5th list? Then moving to the adjustment list. Again, they're very customary. We have Gordon Food Service. We have JP Morgan Chase credit card. We have DT Energy, City Water, Mount Pleasant Water Department, and Wex Bank. These are all payments that we make to avoid late payment fees. It's just the schedules don't line up, and so we try to get those paid and not have to deal with late fees, which are usually probably removed when we call them, but it takes effort and time. On the August 5th, basically the same thing, except for the Care Matters LLC was a manual check for $525 for DOT required substance abuse program for the MRF. Any questions on the adjustment list? If not, we'll move this forward then to tonight's meeting.
Okay, real quick, Nicole, did you want to go over page 3 of that adjustment list real quick? That is the new biweekly payroll report that, Jerry, we did not see that in committee, commissioners, so. this
Didn't
is-
scroll down to it. I
No.
apologize.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, so if you wouldn't mind explaining that, that is a new thing.
It is a new thing, and this was the first time out of the gate with it. Just a one pager. We're trying to not give you an additional report to approve, but incorporate it into something that you were already approving. So we put it on the adjustment list because obviously payroll doesn't happen every week. It happens bi-weekly, but basically this is the report, the payroll report for August 4th. It talks about number of direct deposits. We make 282 direct deposits and we print 9 lovely little physical checks. So if any of you would like to move to direct deposit, we're very open to that. Total gross payroll is just over 500,000. Net is 350,000 after you take out everyone's deductions for various things. Total number of regular hours worked is 18,711. And number of overtime hours is 511. I'm guessing the bulk of that is probably in the sheriff's and public safety. The down below, the payroll deductions and expenses going forward, we'll separate these out between deductions and expenses, right? Because I want you to understand what does a payroll cost the county. Child support deduction for someone that doesn't count the county anything, right? That's a deduction out of employees' paycheck. So going forward, we will separate this between deductions and expenses so you can see what the true expense is for the county. But this just talks about how much we pay Blue Cross Blue Shield. Did you know we send them almost $300,000 every month? Right? That makes sense, I suppose, if we have a $4 million spend. But when you start to see these biweekly numbers, it just another getting information in front of you, getting your eyes connected to the true cost of doing business at the county.
Thank you, Nicole. I did read this and I was impressed with the detail in it. I forgot it was on here though.
Like I said, it's brand new, and Nicole, thank you if you're going to spread that out, because in running a business, you do see these, and it also counts into going with, when you do the indirect costs, you can see what you have to put in, like you mentioned, just some of the issues you have to be pulling out of payroll, doing this, doing that. Yes, it's all computerized. Can you imagine 30, 40 years ago when you used to have to do all this by hand and take it down and pull the sheet?
I can.
Yeah, I would, yeah. So anyway,
Up a
thank you.
ledger.
That's very, and again, I'm sure that's something we'll see in committee and go over and go hit it in more detail. So thank you for that.
So the second item of business is consider scheduling the public hearing on the fiscal year 2023 proposed budget beginning at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as it may be heard on Tuesday, September 6th, 2022, as a hybrid meeting, which is in person and electronic, at the Isabella County Commission on Aging via Zoom. So we had a presentation on the budget. They'll give a chance for the public to weigh in on. The budget will be online. And anybody that would wish to come to speak to any aspect of the budget will be able to do it at the hearing, which is a legislative requirement. As soon as the hearing's over, I guess we address any issues that may come up. Otherwise, we'll be adopting the budget that evening.
2 weeks later. The public hearing is 2 weeks prior to adoptions.
Yep.
The adoption, so.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it'll give us 2 weeks to make any adjustments
That's all
that may come up from the public or from the members of this body.
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
So if we make a significant change after the hearing, do we need to have another hearing?
No.
Quick
Yes,
answer,
sir.
quick question, quick answer. Any other questions or comments? Then we'll move this forward to adoption for tonight's meeting. And Mr. Chairman, that completes the work. I better turn the page and check. Work of the Finance and Administration Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Zelzinski. Wonderful job. Next up, the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Okay. We have considered approving the secondary road patrol and traffic accident prevention program application effective October 1st, 2022 until September 30th, 2023 in the amount of $148,604.83 and authorize board chair to sign the same. We have the sheriff with us. It's basically helps to pay for one position to patrol some of the secondary roads in the outer counties. So Sheriff.
Evening, everybody. So this is just the application. It's the same thing that comes across every single year. The 416 or secondary road patrol is money that we get from the state to travel those secondary roads off the M20, the US 127s, US 10, that type of stuff. They respond to crashes and driving complaints and so forth. They are still able to respond to emergency calls, not related to traffic. We just don't document that. There's a method that they process these funds through. at the state, and it's been a game for the last several years since I've started as sheriff. They've always wanted to move this money and take this money, and it's just always been reduced. And the 48,484 that we get doesn't cover a position, and it used to cover two. So good news. They just negotiated, the Sheriff's Association along with several others negotiated the stabilization of that and the funding for that. I anticipate that will go up. I don't know what that's going to look like moving forward. The last few years, we've seen an increase at the end of the year of another 15 or 20,000 into that. So I'm hoping that'll happen again, but that should stabilize and we should see a little better number come in on that. So that's a huge bonus. We have one position. Oakland has, I think, 15 or 20. So, I mean, it really impacts some of those places pretty difficult when they start to reduce. So again, this is just the application process for it. Needs to be approved through the board and signed.
Anybody have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move that forward to tonight's business session. So. Okay, next up, we have consider approving the request from the Isabella County Clerk's Office to provide divorce packets at a cost of $50 per packet, effective immediately. This came from the clerks and she can explain it, but she receives quite a few requests for this, and other counties are actually offer this as a service, and it's a way for the county to make a little bit of money also. So
currently we are turning people away. We have about 4 to 6, maybe a little more, monthly that will come and ask us if we have these packets, to provide to them. And when we turn them away, we basically have to tell them to go and Google the packets and try printing them out on their own. Or I make contact with the library. They can go down there and they can copy them forms themselves. So in collaboration with some other county clerks, I was asking around to find out what do they do. And basically they take SCIO and they take the forms and have them professionally done. And then they offer them, and there's a different ranges in here, to the people to purchase. And then it's also revenue, and we're also helping out the residents of Isabella County too.
okay, is there any more questions? Yes, Commissioner.
And maybe you put it in there, and I'm so sorry if I missed it. What is, again, without estimating, you don't have an estimate, what do you anticipate the revenue from this? Do you have any, what other counties are receiving,
Up to about 5,000
Okay,
per year. It just depends. We got to get the word out that we now have them. And there's also going to be a disclaimer on it too, that our attorney recommended, stating that we're not providing any legal advice. We can't assist them with the forms whatsoever, and they will only be sold at the county clerk's, only at my window. They will not be sold over in circuit court.
thank you. That's all, Commissioner Engler, for me.
And I think in there, it also says there was kind of the range of 20 to 75. So 50 was kind of in the middle of the road to start out, see how it works. So any more questions? Seeing none, we'll move this forward to tonight's business session.
All right, item number 3, consider approving the computer system software license sales agreement between Fiddler Technologies and Isabella County on behalf of Isabella County Clerk and Schedule A, Apex Vital Records System Life Cycle Program, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. And we have Isabella County Clerk Mindy Lux to explain the use of the software.
An IT person, but I'll explain it as best I can. Currently, the system we are utilizing, I think probably started back when Betty Prout was county clerk, towards the end of her term, and Joyce One at that point in time had ACS come on, and I'm sure most of you guys know ACS and the problems we've had, and now it's ACS Avenue. They've changed names 3 or 4 times. Anyways, they're not very techy for us to actually go in and utilize web formats for our people if they request a vital record. And so we put out RFPs, and Fiddler came back great. They didn't need any upfront money for us, which was a big plus for me due to the budget and everything. And they kind of fit right in where it was just gonna take us just a little bit above what we're currently paying right now, but we'll be able to have the new software. We're able to keep the computers that we have right now, along with they are offering some upgrades. So we'll have like a kiosk system outside of the clerk's office where they can go up there, they can fill their application out, do everything on their own, send it through, and then we basically scan it into our side. So there's less room for errors with us, more for them, but less for us. So, and actually we do have Scott Moore from Fiddler on right now. Scott, if you want to reveal your face, please. He's the guy you can ask all the questions to.
I believe he's off mute now. Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can. Question for him. Yep, sorry.
Are there any questions about the use of the software or how it interacts with Scott Moore, or would you like to hear anything from him on that specific portion of this agreement? Oh, okay, well, then let me flip back to my agenda page here, and looks like it's not gonna pop. Yep, it's not gonna pop up. So we'll go to paper. All right, so we'll move that forward to tonight's regular session, and then we have another contract concerning this software. Consider approving Bastion Software License Agreement between Fiddler Technologies and Isabella County on behalf of Isabella County Clerk in Schedule A. Software pricing and payment. Authorize the board chair to sign the same. Okay, and this basically covers the contract for Fiddler to utilize this Bastion software as a cloud service offsite for all the data and forms. So we'll be utilizing space offsite with Fiddler. And Mindy, Lex, would you have anything to add to that?
No, Commissioner Sweeney, you pretty much covered everything on this.
Mhm.
If anyone else has any questions, or you can bring forth, your ideas and stuff I'll let you take over all that. You're really good with that.
We had a long discussion with Scott Moore and also I cannot remember the engineer and
Adam Watkins.
on their security protocols, the access, so it covered it very thorough, to not dive into it too strongly. Any questions and concerns I had were answered solidly by them. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions or concerns that Scott Moore can address on the offsite storage of the county clerk data.
I don't have any questions or my concerns are eliminated with Clerk Lux giving 2 thumbs up on it. And I know you're very tech savvy, so thank you for doing that in your committee. Thank you for doing that in your committee, because sometimes I just, my idea of IT is get it done. I point to you, look, get it done. So, that's kind of how I look at it. So thank you both. I know this is, if you're putting your name on it, it's good enough for me. So I'm fine with it.
Okay, well, after our discussion, that's why you saw a new contract basically come forward with a little bit more description, like on security and certifications and scheduling the monthly fees and how that would set out. And thank you, Scott, for doing that.
You're welcome.
Is there anything you'd like to add? Sorry. Is there anything you'd like to add, Scott?
No, void of any specific questions. I just get myself in trouble if I talk when I don't have questions.
Oh, that happens to all of us, Scott.
All right. Are there any other questions?
I just want to say this was a really great process in my mind, how it should work when a commissioner has questions about an issue that just, maybe you have a little more knowledge about the issue than the rest of your board. And you've got these questions that aren't being asked, you're the one to ask them. I assume Commissioner reached out to Clerk Lux. We set up a meeting with the vendor. It was great questions. All the questions were answered. Everything's above board, now you can sit here with the confidence of knowing your questions are answered. Clerk Lux and I learned a lot, definitely, during that meeting too. But the taxpayers at the end of the day can be confident that you're asking the right questions. And I just love the process. So thank you for taking the extra effort, Commissioner.
My pleasure, Administrator Frost.
I had to clarify after our call. Our engineer came into my office and said, "Are you sure he's a commissioner?" He thought you were in IT.
I've done a lot of things in my life. A lot of,
Army knife.
The brewmaster.
all right, if there are no further questions, we'll bring that forward to the regular session. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
That completes the work of the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next up, Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Okay, our first item is consider adopting Isabella County Board of Commissioners Resolution number 2022-03, the Michael Seaman Lacrosse Cyclocross Race 2022, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. Okay, what this is about is the Mid-Michigan Cycle. And an event coming up at Deerfield Park on September 17th, 2022. And it will be the 6th annual lacrosse cross race. And each year they dedicate this race to Michael Seaman, who tragically lost his life by a drunk driver while bicycling on River Road. And basically, we have the application, we have the resolution that needs to be done. Place, it has to do with, there's also liability insurance. Does anybody have any questions? Oh,
No, that's okay. You did a great job. That's
I didn't even see
good.
anything.
Well, this
Dr.
is a
Rex?
program though that we just have this. Use Deerfield Park, the north side of the park by the disc golf, as you just said. They fill out a contract form to use the park and it's agreement. And part of that agreement is to have this liability insurance. Lisa Haddon is the president of the Mid-Michigan Cycling Club. But I was asked in the past, I came here last year as well, just to present this to the board. But it is their program and they're using Deerfield Park. And it is a great program. They do a wonderful job.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So I know this program's been going on for a number of years. How many participants, and does it seem to be growing or?
Well, they had 100 last year and I talked to Lisa about a week ago where they had, may have been 2 weeks ago, but they had early registration and they had over 60 people. And they've never had that many do the pre-registration. That many have never pre-registered that early. So she's hoping to definitely be well over the 100. It is an early race, earlier than in the past. So with all the nice weather that we have, I'm sure it's going to be perfect. So they can accommodate quite a few racers, but they've had over 100 each time they've had it, is my understanding. So yeah, it's really a neat event. I think the last time I said, if you guys could get out there to see it, it's really an interesting race. They line out the course that has high tape markings for the racers to ride their bikes over and over and over again. And it's just, it's grueling. I think it's a grueling race. So it's neat to see the pros and then the novices. And at one point they had, I think, younger kids doing it or just for fun, but I'm not sure if that's part of it this year, but it's, these are very, healthy people that are riding a bike in a very, hilly area, and they really enjoy doing it at Deerfield. It's a really good site for them to do. So we're pleased to, have them use Deerfield Park for sure. But the resolution is part of the event that they're required by the state, I think, to have a resolution from the.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I just have a point question to ask the county administrator controller. Is that something this evening that resolution will have to be read or not? So
I just want to say that it's just shows, this event just shows how varied the different services to the community that the parks offer, like the arts in the park. You know, I think this is just really great.
Well, I will like to, I think I do want to say one other thing about this organization. Lisa provides me with a bullet points of what this organization does, the Mid-Michigan Cycling Club. And they are a 501c3 that promote healthy and fit activity for kids. They promote bicycling as a family and a community. And as you can see, if you notice, I mean, I know we all notice that Mount Pleasant is very bikes friendly town and growing to that extent. So it's really a wonderful part of their organization that they help promote that when people with the kids. They do a host neighborhood bicycle cleaning and maintenance at fairs. They have scholarships for young riders that participate or race in the state of Michigan. So they help support them. And I just think it's awesome. I don't know much about, I never knew much about the organization. I had the honor of meeting Mike Seaman a couple of times, was a really wonderful person, very much a promoter of cycling, a very good cyclist, and very tragic thing that happened to him. So this also supports his cause. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, this will be on the regular session of the county commission this evening.
Okay. Our second item is consider approving the land acquisition project agreement between the Michigan Department of Natural Resources on behalf of the state of Michigan and Isabel County for the Meridian Park Acquisition Project TF 21-0079 and adopt Isabel County Board of Commissioners Resolution 2022-04 and authorize board chair to sign.
Well, we've been waiting a while. We know that we had received approval for this grant by the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund, and then it has to go through the legislation to approve this. And then it has to go to the governor for her signature. This is one of the latest times I think that this has gone on, but they got through the process. I mean, for various reasons, but we're happy that, we finally have the agreement. You have any questions, please let me know if we want this to move along, because the next step is we still need to have a appraisal still done out at Meridian Park, an updated appraisal, and speaking with the landowner to see, they've been very patient waiting this long for this agreement. As Commissioner Galzinski knows, it's a long process for an acquisition for a landowner. So we're after this is signed, we've just got a few things to do, and then I'll be back. I know you guys are looking forward to it. I'll be back soon. So sorry, but there's a lot going on. But this is just the agreement then with the state and with us, the Isabella County Parks, that acknowledging that the grant has been approved and to the terms of what the agreement was. So the match is this grant is for $85,000 to purchase in the original grant application, about 11 acres of land. And our match is $30,000 funded by Isabella County Park for a total cost of $115,000 for the project. But there's, things that will come up in discussing with the landowner if they want to still sell the 11 or different amount of acreage. We can't buy, I don't believe we can buy more, but if there's less, and we'll be talking with him soon, he and his wife soon, so.
Yeah, we really do have to commend the landowner for his patience during this whole process. But if you ever looked at that map, I said that having even half of that property opens up probably another 30 acres or 40 acres along the river there, so because of the swampiness and the trail in there, so it would really be a nice improvement to the park system if we can get that, so we're all excited about hopefully getting this process through, so.
Commissioner Hutchinson. Quick question. Again, I'm going to turn to Nicole on this one. We have a resolution, has to be read this evening, correct? And also Chairman Hope's name's on this one. So that probably has to be corrected for this evening's meeting if it can be done. If not, I can.
Yes, sir.
So,
We'll check.
okay, just a point of clarification on that. So, okay. That was all from me, Commissioner Hutchinson.
Now, this is a, it's 11 point, just over 11 acres. And it opens up so much. Been in the process for a while.
I'll also comment that if you recall, we do have an easement on the property as well there's that little bump out that's part of our trail. So it's really a crucial piece of property too that will help access the back part of I mean, we still have access to it, but we do have an easement agreement with the owner at this time.
Okay, that concludes the Public Works Committee, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Next up, intergovernmental affairs, we have no actions under that, nothing under the administrator controller. We have nothing under unfinished business, nor do we have anything under new business. Which brings us to general public comments. Do we have any general public comments? Yes, we do tonight. We have somebody from the audience, a familiar face. Been up here once tonight.
Because it hasn't been long enough, right, Commissioner?
Yes, sir.
I'll make it very quick. So I just want to make a couple comments about the conversation in regards to the hiring review process. I think it was going in a good spot and a good location there. Since I started, I've lost 27 employees. When I say that out loud, I start to reflect that maybe I need to go home and rethink some things. I'm not sure, but luckily most of them are retirements. And I've been doing some research because I'm real curious. And last time we added a deputy, and I'm back about 50 years now, that wasn't a contract position. And I know going through those 27 deputies and in the process that we have to go through to do the backgrounds and the hire, and sometimes the board process is a 3-week process out, and that's pretty difficult. So I would really ask that the board be cognizant of that and maybe allow the administrator to have the heavy lifting there, and then maybe, like you mentioned, if there's a conflict, and come back to the board or something. I just kind of concerns me a little bit. I'm probably one of the heavy lifters. I guess the court probably is too, and maybe even the MRF, but I thought with our budget increase or our wage increases, we would stabilize, and I lost 3 this spring. So, it's pretty quick, and we started the spring off seven short out of the 14 that we have. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Anybody else want to come up from the audience? Seeing nobody making their way up. Jessica, anybody on their hand raised or on the virtual? Okay. Then in the interest of time, I will close general public comment, move to announcements. Commissioners, any announcements? Commissioner Joe Lozinski had his hand raised first, so.
Does it surprise you? I attended the Northern Michigan Counties Association meeting yesterday, and we didn't get a MAC report because legislative break and vacations and everything came in. But a couple of things I did learn is the state still has not made any budgetary decisions on their portion of the ARPA funds, which I think is $6 or $7 million. And the Senate, the House may come back for a day or two, but then they're going to be politicking. So if something is going to happen, it's probably going to be a late legislative session, but kind of the word is out that there may not be big dollars for like broadband. It may be a lot of smaller grants that'll be put forward, and some of those may be already in the process. The other thing I learned at the end of the meeting in the announcements of the other county commissioners there is Clare County has a facility for secure youth detention, and they were asking other counties if they had an interest in partnering or making use of that facility. So I was just thinking about, the possibility of us doing that with the old jail if we move ahead with the new jail. So I did give the Clare County Commissioner Nicole Frost, Administrator Frost, name. as a contact, and I gave a card to Nicole before the meeting just to get in the dialogue to see what's going on. There may be some benefit for us in terms of the court making assignments to a facility.
Commissioner Engler.
Yes, I have a few dates for you, and please excuse the longevity of some of the report I'm gonna give, but we do have some stuff to the Conservation District. The tire pickup will be October 1st at the fairgrounds. Hazardous waste pickup will be October 22nd at the fairgrounds, so from 8 to noon. Just real quick, throughout the year, the Conservation District, along with some of our stakeholders and some other organizations, did a survey about needs within the county. So this is just a county. And I wanted to read the top 5 for the natural resource priorities that came back. Number 1 was water quality. Number 2 is sediment from agriculture runoff, farm fields, depositing sediment and creating erosion. Number 3 was high E. coli levels, hazardous waste management. Number 4 was invasive species and wildlife habitat. And number 5 was natural resource protection. So like I said, we've been doing this for about a year, survey and out to county residents, and this is what the survey results came. So it's kind of interesting. I thought that you would kind of like to hear those numbers. So later when we get some action plans, maybe I'll give a report or drop a report to everybody. They can see it. One other thing real quick, I want to do a quick update in case people were kind of curious about this, the septic drain field cost share program. There was 2 grants, one for $100,000 for point source, and then there was 125 for non-point pollution sources. And right now, as of this date, the non-ports point source, we have spent $42,032. There's $57,000 remaining in that program. And on the point source, we have spent 40,000, not we, but the committee, the cost, what do they call it? The septic drain field committee, I think that they call it, cost share committee. Anyways, for the point source, they spent 40,550 and there's 79,450 remaining. So, and I do think they're going to apply for more funding in this fall so that there will not be a gap in the program. So just kind of update real quick. And one more, and then I will be quiet. It has a little bit to do with 3 of the townships that I'm involved with the Dollar General. They were about a month ago, I think I brought that up. They just got a letter. Right now, it looks like Broomfield, Sherman, and Deerfield Township are going to go together. And right now, they have so many days. I think the term is coming up. So they are going to say yes, they are going to go and address this thing with the Dollar General, which is kind of the dark store theory, where I know the one store they wanted about a year ago, there was a store bought for like $1.2 million, and they say the assessment should be 600,000. So the issue is it'll probably cost them more in litigation than what the taxes will become to the county. But I'm sure the only 3 townships, and it will affect the county somewhat too with the tax revenues from those stores. So I'm not sure if any of the other or any of the other townships where they have Dollar Generals, if there's been anything in there, but those 3 townships are going ahead and starting the process to go through the tax tribunal. So we'll see what happens. Could have a financial effect on some of the tax revenues. Definitely not a big effect for the townships, but maybe the more they are. So, and I'm not sure if this is going on throughout the state, but I would imagine that this is not a single item. So, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Oops, the one on Pickard, is that a Dollar General, the one by Burger King or Disney? No? because that would fall under charter with, union, excuse me, charter, union, which is, I don't know if that's your precinct though, gonna be your precinct. That might be 2, which should be, I don't know who falls in it. Steve, is that yours? It's gonna fall into union 2.
Sure that my district goes up that high in Union Township. The line just changed, so I'm not sure exactly
Right.
where that.
Representative here from Union Township, have they received a letter? Okay,
Yeah, I'm right now, that's my district. I'm not aware of anything being done with Dollar General. I think that's a Dollar General. I think that's I think,
And
or is that a
actually,
Family Dollar there?
No, it's a Dollar
Is
General.
that a Dollar General? So, yeah, they're all, again, I lose track because go through Barrington, you got Family Dollar and Dollar General. You go through Family Dollar, Dollar General. It's like right across the street from each other.
but initially, with the Kmart's and the Walmart's that closed down, we were talking a big footprint, and now these are such a smaller footprint, so what happens if they win their case? Will other stores similar and smaller size, will they be able to go through it? But it could have a big effect overall.
Thank you for bringing that up. Keep us informed. Anybody else have any comments or anything? And I have nothing to add for announcements this evening, and I believe, if I recall correctly, anybody else? Well, then I think with the call of the vice chair serving as the chairman tonight, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 6:19.